first item of business is citizen comments. Do I have any citizen comments? Please raise your hand. Mr. Stewart.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
You need to identify yourself first.
Okay, yeah, James Stewart, Dedham Street, Dover. I was the person behind the citizens petition that you're going to be discussing later regarding the study committee for moving to possibly moving to 5 selectmen. I wanted to thank you all for considering it and for putting it on the agenda for this meeting. I am heartened and looking forward to the establishment of the committee to look into it. Since the town meeting, I've had further discussions with people and people from other towns that have moved to the 5 selectmen structure, and they are raving about how well it works. And this is from people who are still currently on the select board, as well as people who were on the board previously or on the board when it made the transition. So it's unanimous. One thing I'd like to just point out very briefly is that Holliston, I believe, a couple of years ago in COVID, considered it. And there was a lot of misinformation in their process. And it was unfortunate. There was some things like no one has moved to a 5-person board, or no town has moved to a 5-person board. And that's just not the case. So, I look forward to having a committee investigate the pros and cons fully. And thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, citizen comments? So there being none, I am going to turn it over to item 1.1, and we will be, Chief McGowan will be presenting the appointment of Charles Mosher. Hopefully I said the name right, to Sergeant.
Pretty close. Maybe that was a British accent. So
okay.
I'm here actually to ask the board to consider my recommendation to appoint Charles Mosher to the next sergeant's position. Earlier this year, Sergeant Ed Mayo retired after 30 plus years with the town, leaving a pretty big void. I started the process with hand-to-hand consulting. We had a testing process and a interview process with 3 neighboring police chiefs and executives. And Charles Mosher came to the top of the list, both in scores on the test and on the interview panel. Coincidentally, he was also first runner-up when we had this process 4 or 5 years ago, and only 2 points separated him and the candidate that got the sergeant position at that time, Joe Woolard. So I'm very pleased to offer a recommendation for the next sergeant's position for the Dover Police Department as Charles Mosher. He's been with us since 2009 as a part-time. He's been with us since 2009 as a part-time officer, and actually he was my first full-time appointment as a police officer for the town of Dover. So I'm very pleased to make this recommendation. I hope the board will consider it.
So certainly seems like a good fit for the town, and it sounds like you went through a really robust process. So I don't have any questions. Bob or John, do you?
No, I read the recommendation and the information that was submitted in it, and I agree with you, Rod. It looks like a very thorough process, and happy to support Dan when we get to that point.
Okay, John, do you have any comments?
Chief, Charles is with us. I see his name on the video. Charles, you there? He's muted and the video's off.
So John, do you support this?
Absolutely.
All right, then
I just wanted to actually see if his face was on there, or if he just zoomed in,
Right. Well, let's say he's having technical difficulties. So why don't I make a motion and then we can congratulate him. So I move to approve the appointment of Officer Charles Marsher to the position of Sergeant on the Dover Police Department effective September 15th, 2022. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
I do have a question now, though. Why is it called Dan Marsher on the
Exactly.
Video? You sure we're recommending the right guy, Chief?
He's incognito.
Charles.
Or is he using his son's computer or something? What's going on?
There you go. I do have one correction. The date of implementation will be the 22nd, not the 15th, please.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll change that to September 15th, 2022.
Has he memorized all the cars that we drive and know all 10 of the vehicles registered, all those little things that are important?
I don't think that that's important because there should be no special treatment to Board of Selectmen members.
Have you seen my wife driving?
Well, Charles, congratulations, well-deserved, and I'm sure you'll do great in the position of sergeant.
Likewise, Charles. Step up and help Dover maintain the civil society that we've had for a very long time. Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, so we're moving to item 1.2, and that is going to be the Haven Street signage discussion with a potential vote. And I believe Chief McGowan, you and Bob Tosi, our operations superintendent, will be making a recommendation.
Correct.
Okay.
So both Kevin and myself took a ride after Kevin had received an inquiry for signage on the small farm just off of Main Street on Haven. We took a ride. We decided the best place to locate a couple of signs that are in the MUCTD traffic manual. And we're going to also make some recommendations that the property owner trim back some shrubbery and overgrowth by his driveway to improve sight lines. Did I get everything, Bob?
You got everything. It basically is just going to be a 30 by 30 sign with a piece of farm machinery on it, black with yellow background. Just basically warning of farm equipment and machinery in the roadway approaching.
Okay. So I appreciate the effort of the chief as well as the highway department to take a look at this and get back to us so quickly. And I understand from reading the memo that this is your recommendation. So I don't have any questions, and I'm ready to make a motion, but I do ask John or Bob if you have any questions.
I have one question for you guys. So there's this sort of underlying issue of risk and people seeing risk in places where they may or may not be. And so I just want you guys to say, so there were two pieces to this recommendation. One was the shrubbery ought to be cut back from the roads to improve the line of sight. And we're going to add a sign. And given the nature of this, I mean, I support both, but is this a risk situation, or would have this been taken care of if the line of sight had been consistently mowed?
I think it's a combination where the driveway is and the road curvature. I think it's good to have the advisory there.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Bob, you too?
Same thing. It's on a really bad corner.
Okay.
So that's not helping. I think these warning signs will definitely help out.
Right. I think those signs just, you see it and you go, oh, farm equipment may be here. So it does just help.
So the problem with signs is when you use the road, you get used to them and you don't see them. And it happens all the time, right? So signs, when they're first put up, they're noticed, and then after a while they just they disappear. So I agree that both have to happen, but I would really think that the owner really needs to take care of the line of sight and keep the shrubberies and stuff cut back on the right of way. I think that's the best way to ensure safety.
Right. Which he has.
Again, I thank you guys for going out and doing it for us, and appreciate the recommendation.
Right. John?
The only thing to add, Robin, is that, Chris Yoda, who brought this to us a while back, and the neighbors around it that have been asking for this in support of it, appreciate it greatly. The distance that the patrons to the farm stand have to walk is on the road. There's really no way around it because there's only parking on one side. There's only access on one side. So anything to help mitigate the traffic, as Bobby and I have talked about, the drop in the road, the curve in the road, all at the same time, make it difficult. The one thing, Bob, that you don't have to worry about with regards to signage at that point, Bobby can't even keep a stop sign at that intersection because it gets literally destroyed at least once a month, and usually by trucks making the wide turn. So,
You sure it's trucks?
yeah,
Not a certain selectman?
no comment. But anyway, so yeah, thank you both, and it's a step in the right direction, Bob, and it's long overdue, but you're right about both. It's just it's a tough intersection. It's a tough configuration, and the drop in elevation where the farm stand traffic is, it makes it difficult from both directions. So, Bobby, is the sign going to go right at the Trout Brook sign coming south, and then will the other sign just be at the top of the rise?
That's correct. Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it for me, Robin.
All right, so then I am going to make a motion. I move to approve the installation of the vehicular traffic warning signs on Haven Street as recommended.
Second,
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
hi, Bob Springer.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right.
So I have a new hookup here. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So now moving to item 1.3, it's the approval of professional services agreement with Beta Group for pavement management services. And Bobby, you're on again.
Yes, so Kevin and myself have been looking to have the Beta Group come out, and basically what they do is do a field data collection on our roadways, sidewalks, guardrail, basically a lot of the infrastructure around Dover. And they take bore samplings of the roadway along with filming of everything and measuring of everything, guardrails and stuff. And basically, once they've done putting all that information together, they will score your roadways and everything on a scale of 0 to 100. And wherever you fall on the scale, it recommends, this program would recommend either like a mill and fill, grinding of the pavement, resurfacing. If it doesn't need that much work, they'll ask you, they'll say, it's due for crack sealing, micro sealing. So basically it's a preservation and right down the complete road building. So this program would basically give you a recommendation on what road needs what needs attention first. And basically it's just a huge mapping system for us, which is really amazing. And it's basically it's an agreement for 3 years, and if you guys agree to this, they will come out, scan everything, and give us a baseline in Dover, which we need to work off of moving forward. So that's where we're at.
Okay, so So Bobby, basically, I know, we traditionally as a town have had a program where we consistently, rotated streets. And if we saw some issues with some of the streets, we would then move them up in the paving process, right?
Correct.
So this, in effect, improves that with technology, because I know in times we've had the question, why are you paving this street rather than that street? So this gives us a baseline, right?
This will give us a baseline. We're also looking at preservation. It'll tell us if the road should be preserved and maybe grabbing another 7 to 8 years out of it before completely resurfacing it. So that's what it's the kind of information it's gonna give us. This was all done by really driving the roads, Craig or myself back in the day, and and looking at them, which took up a lot of time. But this company comes right in, they drive all the roadways, film, and then put it in a GIS system, and all the data is collected and scaled.
Okay.
Robin, may I?
Sure.
I like the idea of it takes the subjectivity out of it.
Right.
A couple of years ago, Sarah Molyneux and Don Law came with a couple of other people from Strawberry Hill, and they lobbied us not to resurface Strawberry Hill and Wilsondale because it made bikes go too fast, bicyclists go too fast, and motorists driving too fast. And then Bobby gets that also from people on scenic roads like Pine Street and Claybrook, Powysset, where they want the people who live on the street want traffic to slow down, and they want Bobby to keep the potholes. So
Right.
I think doing this takes the subjectivity part out of it. It takes the lobbying from some of the residents, for better or worse, by the way, in some cases, because some people are going to not like this. Some people are going to say, no, we want to be in control of the street, and we want to be able to lobby Bobby and his staff as to how to do this. So I think that will be helpful to everybody in the town.
I agree. So Bobby, and maybe Chris, this is more a question for you. So the cost of the contract, the 34,600, that is for the 3 years, is that correct? And was that something we budgeted for already?
Yeah, so the price that you see there is for the full contract term.
Oh, okay.
And as it relates to the budget, my understanding in speaking with Kevin is that he intends to use Chapter 90 funds for this, of which the town has close to $1 million in the account. And just as a reminder for the board, these are funds that the state provides to Dover, as they do for each municipality, for roadway work, actual repair or preparation work like this engagement that we're seeking.
You actually answered my second question, which was going to be, does Chapter 90 funds, is this something we can use Chapter 90 funds for? So, yes. So I don't have any more questions, Bob.
I think that I think moving into this sort of space is really a good thing for the town. I mean, I have missed bumping into Craig driving through town, looking at roads and byways and highways. I certainly have to admit to that. I do not share John's faith that the technology will prevent citizens from lobbying the highway department.
I agree.
On any number of issues. That's really a stretch. But nevertheless, I think having a baseline, having recommendations come way. I really like to do the visualizations. I've talked to Chris a couple of times about, on my walk, I see guardrails that look like they're well past their last legs. Having this, having automated way of looking at it, having automated prompts, helps the human beings who have to actually do the work. So it sounds like a right step in the right direction. It sounds like from a financial point of view, it's a no-brainer. So thank you guys for that, because I really have no brain. So
Right. Well, I love it. Goes along with automating and systematizing things, and I think it will go a long way.
yeah.
So I move to authorize the town administrator to execute all documents related to the professional service agreement between Dover and Beta Group.
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right, there you go.
And Bobby, I did not say it would eliminate. I would said it would help you.
Give me a break. You did say.
It's a tool that will help
I'm
you.
actually very excited to see it and the results, and I'm very excited. I'm curious to see where Dover scores.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I think it's going to be a lot higher than we think.
I hope so, after all the
Dover's gonna
work you guys have
score
done
well.
over the years.
So
Right.
I wasn't a believer when Kevin first brought it to my attention, but after going to a seminar with the Beta Group, it was really it was exciting, and the technology now is just amazing. So
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So you have to share the score with us, Bobby, okay?
I certainly will. Yes,
All right.
it's very competitive across the state of Massachusetts. What towns are scored the highest and stuff like that. So
It may
we're
be,
trying to get us right to the top.
okay, so it may be something else we want to flash on that electronic sign as you drive
That's right.
into Dover.
That's right. Yep. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. So we're moving along to item 1.4, and that's the discussion of the adoption of the town of Dover's hazard mitigation plan for 2022. It's the update and a potential vote. And I think both of you will remember doing this before. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris. It's not a new item.
Thanks, Robin. That's correct. Not a new item. In fact, this is actually the final step needed as the board's final review and approval of the plan in order for it to be accepted by MEMA and FEMA, and then we can move forward with implementation, as well as opening the town up to grant funding opportunities through those two agencies that I had just mentioned. So I know the board was involved in the process last year with the planning board as well, who spearheaded this effort. And again, today's action really is just for the board to vote on the current plan that's in your packet, which we will then send off to the MAPC, who is the entity who helped coordinate the hazard mitigation plan update for us this time around, as they did last time around. So I won't go into the details on how we got here unless the board would like, but happy to answer any particular questions if need be.
So I have no questions. I would like to thank the work of the planning board, getting us to where we are today, as well as everybody in the townhouse, because it takes a team. Bob, John, do you have any comments?
I don't have a question. Chris, is it possible just to highlight the top 5 things that are contained in this update for the residents, so that they know they have some idea what we're talking about?
Other than we're
Yeah.
eligible to receive funds?
Other than we're eligible to receive funds, which is always a good bottom line. It's a closer. That's the closer.
That's number one.
Sure. Yeah. So the hazard mitigation planning effort is very similar to the municipal vulnerability preparedness program that the town participated in and underwent a few years ago, that Jerry Clark helped spearhead for the town. And the effort here and the intent is for communities to be able to identify hazardous areas or vulnerable areas, in particular as it relates to climate change, and allows the town to put together a planning document that prioritizes areas that should be focused on. As you'll see on the cover of our updated plan here, the Charles River flooding at Mill Street is certainly an area of focus that's identified in the plan and has been identified by the town as an area of focus, as are a multitude of points along the Charles River. I think, what I take from the plan is that some of our most susceptible areas to climate change and to issues related to flooding fall along the Charles River. And I think you've seen that certainly with the Claybrook Road situation that has occurred and that we're undertaking to repair, as well as some of the issues that we're seeing in other points along the Charles. So I think, in summary, our biggest concerns, our biggest identifiable areas through the plan are those ones that we find ourselves susceptible to flooding, either along the Charles directly or through the tributaries that we see from the rivers and the streams that flow off of that. And I'm happy to report that the Public Works Department is working actively on a handful of these points to help address these.
Thank you very much.
John?
Nothing for me. I
Okay.
appreciate the outline and the just sort of the amount of work that's gone into this. It is in keeping with all the things that we've done from a preparation standpoint, and it just shows we are on top of all of the items that we possibly can be. So, thanks, Chris.
All right, so then I'm going to make a motion. I move that the Town of Dover Board of Selectmen adopt the Town of Dover's Hazardous Mitigation Plan for 2022, update in accordance with Massachusetts General Law 40, Section 4, or the Charter and Bylaws of the Town of Dover.
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right. So now we're going to move along to to item 1.5, something that's near and dear to my heart, the review of the financial policy documents and potential vote. And the acting finance director, Carl Valente, is going to be presenting that.
Chair, good morning. So this is also another area that the board has been discussing now for a number of years. Actually, I think it started when Mr. Jeffries was chairing the board. And the board really was looking at its reserve policies and the way both the amount of money kept in reserve, and for the last number of years, the town has had in excess of $10 million in free cash reserves. And there was really a question, is that the right amount? Is that too much? Is that too little? So that was one part of this effort. And then the other effort was around capital and how much the town should be setting aside every year to maintain its infrastructure and update its infrastructure. So there's two policies before the board. The first policy is regarding, again, reserve funds and fund balance. Mr. Springett was the board's representative on that working group. Which I think just, sitting in on and having done this in a number of communities, did a terrific job really looking at the data to come up with an appropriate policy regarding reserves. The committee recommended to the full Board of Selectmen and to the Warrant Committee that the town maintain a reserve of 8% of its gross operating revenues. And just to give you some sense of context, we've been at a percentage, closer to 20-25% for the last 4 years. And I think everybody recognized that that was too much, but wasn't really sure of what the number should be. So again, the committee recommended to the selectmen an 8% reserve of free cash and other reserves. That then begged the question, since we're above that percentage right now, how will the excess reserves, how will that be used or drawn down in such a way to do it in a financially responsible manner? And if you look on the second page of the reserve policy, under section R-3. The committee, the working group on this recommended 4 priorities for the use of, again, the excess reserves, the amount that are being held for sort of emergency and unforeseen situations. The first priority that the working group recommended was to use it for the capital improvement plan. And in any year where the amount that's set aside for capital projects isn't sufficient, that free cash be used for that purpose. And that for fiscal 23, the most recent annual town meeting, over $1 million of free cash was recommended for capital projects. 580,000 for town capital and another 446,000 for the regional school roof and other capital. So again, a very responsible way of using one-time revenues for a one-time purpose. The second priority identified for the use of the excess reserves was for the regional OPEB stabilization fund that the board recommended to town meeting be created a couple of years ago, with a goal of trying to fund the OPEB, that's other post-employment benefits, get a funding of 60% over a 10-year period. So I'm using actuarial data to meet that target. We identified that $700,000 should be appropriated for fiscal 23. And again, town meeting accepted your recommendation. The third priority was for other capital projects or strategic reserves. There were none on the warrant this past year. And then the fourth priority for the use of the excess free cash was to stabilize the tax rate and other property tax relief. And to that end, town meeting approved your recommendation of using 1.6 million to reduce the tax rate and another 880,000 to offset the debt exclusion for the Carroll Community Center project. So we did modeling around all these figures. We have a pretty extensive financial model that we can update every year, and if any of these numbers need to be tweaked going forward, we can do that. But we think the working group on this came up with a pretty comprehensive approach at looking at free cash and fund balance reserves. And then the companion to this was regarding capital funding. And Ms. Hunter was the board's representative on this working group. And there was a couple of things that are sort of primary recommendations that came from that working group. The most important one, and this is on the second page of your document under capital funding policy number 1, that every year the town would set aside 1.5% of its prior year's gross operating budget and devote that specifically for capital purposes. So you're sending a clear message that capital is as important an item in our budget as the operating budget and all the items we fund for operating purposes. What was really interesting about this working group's recommendations is in years where the 1.5% that's set aside from the tax levy for capital purposes, in years where that's too great a number beyond our sort of needs, that the excess would go into a capital stabilization fund that the town maintains. And in years where the 1.5% is not sufficient, that the town would either draw from the capital stabilization fund, so that would sort of fill the gap, or the town could use other one-time contributions such as free cash. So again, a very thoughtful approach to funding capital, very comprehensive approach, one that we can track every year and show our progress, and then we can model out future years because we, as you know, we do plan our capital spending for the next 5 years. So it does give us a good sense of whether the 1.5% set aside for capital is going to be sufficient or insufficient. The other important thing I would just note is the board did, or the working group did recognize that in certain cases, for larger capital projects, the issuance of debt is going to be appropriate. And in fact, took that approach for the regional school roof project that was approved by town meeting. And so that sort of, again, smooths out the use of the tax levy for capital purposes when you have large one-time projects. So you have both policies before you, and these have been implemented, so to speak, by your recommendations to town meeting for fiscal 23. And we're now looking for formal adoption by the Board of Selectmen, and then they'll go to the Warrant Committee and the Capital Budget Committee following your action.
So thank you very much for a very comprehensive overview of all of the policies and all of the work that was done. And I would like to thank you for your mentorship and guidance as you helped us through this process. I think at the end of the day, we got to a good place for the town. And after all, that was the major goal, was to stabilize the tax rate by looking at everything that impacts it. And I'm really pleased with where we've ended up, and proud of the work that we've all done together to get there. So thank you to you and your team. And you are absolutely correct. You know, we are committed to looking at this every year and making sure that these recommendations continue to work for us as a town.
Very good. Thank you.
So I don't have any more questions or comments. Bob?
You made the, I think you made the critical point that that putting these policies together was a team effort, and it involved various and sundry people, various and sundry, certainly the Warrant Committee and many other people. I like the fact that we did it as a town, and we did it together. I mean, yeah, we had to put up with Carl, but that's just simply part of the gig. And they were thoughtful. They were discussions. They were thorough discussions. It was give and take. There were lots of different considerations made, but I agree with you, Robin, that at the end of the day, we came out at I think a really strong position, right, for the town. For the longest time, we were hearing we have too much free cash. We've been saying that, yeah, we have a lot of free cash, but what we don't, they're set aside for future known liabilities. We finally actually allocated that money to future known liabilities, and all of a sudden the quote free cash pool sort of will shrink over time to a more appropriate level, which I think also is similar to what many other towns do. Is that right, Carl?
It is. It's very much so. And I think, your terminology is right on target. It's for known liabilities. We knew we have these liabilities, and now we've identified a funding source for them.
Right. Okay. I had one question from a resident in town, and I don't remember the answer. I do remember the modeling. So the question was, how come there's no cap on cap stabilization? Will money just simply accrete in that account over time?
So that's a reasonable question, and I think there's two answers to it, as sort of the working group pushed both myself and the town administrator on this analysis. The first is that in looking at our capital plan for the next 5 years, it's a pretty substantial number of items on that plan. So I think for at least the next 5 years, we're probably going to be in a position of the 1.5% set aside will not be sufficient. And we're going to be, and actually the way we model this, we'll be drawing down not only the cap stabilization fund, but probably free cash or some combination of the two in order to fund, very important capital projects. The second part of it is, that's an appropriate question. And as we update the model every year with sort of real data, I think we can then make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen and Warrant Committee and Capital Planning Committee is, does there need to be a cap or a limit on it? So we're not just holding on to the taxpayers' money. But in the short term, it seems like the opposite is going to be happening. We have, very important capital needs before the town, and it looks like for at least the next 5 years, we'll be drawing down either the capital stabilization fund or free cash to help meet those needs.
Thanks, Carl.
John?
So, couple of things from me, and Carl, I just want you to know that I just give you a little bit of reiterate some of the things you said from a history standpoint. This process started more than 7 years ago. And when you say when you said in your opening remarks, I was chair at the time, it was my first time as the chair. I've been chair twice since then. So it was a long time ago. And I also want Robin and Bob to remember that when you came on board to us, it was my first chair. So I take complete credit for all the and
as long as you're willing to take the arrows.
No, I have taken the arrows. And so a couple of quick things. The known liabilities, thank you for bringing that up because that was critically important. And I also just, Robin, want to add that a lot of thanks should go to people like Dave Haviland and Kate Canny and, by the way, James, who's still on the call on the meeting today, and the people that have made up Warrant for all those years, because we would have the lively debates around all of these subjects, topics that we've been trying to put policy and a mathematical order to. So, which I really think this accomplishes. And Bob said that and Robin said that. So I just want to reiterate that. But I also want to remind everybody that we began this process because we recognized a pattern of use that the town had established with free cash, with the town's cash, and that for better or worse, we wanted to put guidelines around or on either side of that pattern of use. And the pattern of use was created in a period of low inflation, very low interest rates, and no debt. And one of the things that Carl, you've mentioned, and Robin and Bob and I have spoke about for the past 7 or 8 years is those are going to change. We're going to go from low inflation at some point in time. And I remember vividly Dave Haviland saying this in one of his periods of way back when we were discussing this right before town meeting. That's going to change. Low inflation, low interest rates, no debt is definitely going to change. And here we are. So, so to all the people that have had input into this, I really appreciate it. But this is really a great place for us to be right here, right now. So thank you. That's it for me, Robin.
All right. So, thank you to everyone. I'm sure we've forgotten people. And I think Carl did mention, we worked with the Warrant Committee and capital budgets. Everybody, all stakeholders had a say including the citizens of Dover who voted for this at town meeting.
Exactly.
So that's another important factor.
Yeah.
So I am moved that the town of Dover Board of Selectmen adopt the reserve funds fund balance policy and the capital funding policy as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springett.
Hi, John Jeffries.
All right, well, again, I can't thank everybody enough. And Chris, I don't think we explicitly thanked you, but thank you for driving this across the finish line for us and your patience as we went through all of this.
I don't remember him playing any role.
He did. He had to talk me off the ledge a couple of times. So you all owe him.
He is not the only one that's had to go off the ledge.
So you have to thank Greg too? You have to thank Greg?
No, I think Chris listened to me more. I said, go talk to Chris.
You saying
So-
that Bob and I don't listen, Robert?
Yeah, well,
I am saying that I abide by the open meeting rules and do not discuss any of these items with you.
that's true. But what about Greg?
He doesn't want to know about it.
Okay. Sounds like things at home too.
Yeah, he ascribes to the yes dear approach, which isn't good when it comes to debate. So now I'm going to move along to item 1.6, which is review of the draft charge of the Board of Selectmen membership size study committee. And James Stewart, thank you for the introduction and reminder. I don't need to say anything more. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and James eloquently reminded us that this was presented at town meeting and this was voted on at town meeting.
Thanks, Robin. So as was mentioned, the town voted the citizen petition for the Board of Selectmen to create a committee to undertake a study to determine whether it made sense for the community to move from a 3-member to a 5-member board. And so with that, I've drafted a charge that's in your packet and before you today for your review and potential approval. The charge reflects the citizen petition that was presented and adopted by the town in May. And just a few quick highlights for everybody to know. The charge really was that, again, the Board of Selectmen create a committee who will conduct a study to explore the aspects of the town adopting over the next several years that shift to a 5-member Board of Selectmen structure. The committee will consist of 7 voting members made up of town residents. It'll also consist of a current member of the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, who will serve as ex officio members. And a few key points are the committee will hire a consultant to assist with this work, and that consultant should have experience in doing this type of work in Massachusetts municipalities, and that the committee and the consultant, to the extent possible and practical, will present the results of the study back to you, the board, and to the town within the next 18 months, and to the extent possible before the 2023 annual town meeting in May. So those are the highlights of the charge. If you adopt that today, the next step for the board will be to advertise and solicit membership for those 7 members who would make up the committee, and then appoint those individuals. Once appointed, they would get together and then move forward with soliciting requests from consulting firms to assist the committee and the town with this work.
So Robin, may I?
You may, because I felt as though this really outlined what was presented in the warrant, correct, Chris? I mean, it was specific.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I don't like about the study sort of the study mandate that is way too limiting. Number one, consisting of 7 members, I'm okay with the number, but limiting it to town residents. So what I've done since this was brought to our attention is gone out to towns that have gone through this and gotten names of the people who are on the committees of the towns that have looked at this. Sherburne, for example, was the first place. And I'd really like to get input from people who are on those committees, because they literally have lived the process and now are living with the consequences of what the board's recommendation came up with. So if we're going to do it, we really should look at the towns and take a deeper dive into the towns around us that have done it. What's your thought?
And that's part of the committee's charge, John. That's correct. Part of the committee's charge, once they hire that consultant, will be to reach out to communities who have made this switch to understand what their experiences has been like.
And though I'm talking about going deeper than that, Chris. I'm talking about having just getting those people on that committee to either physically be a part of this committee or be a part of the be a significant part of the process.
So hang on a second, guys. Can we amend this, because this is essentially what the town voted for?
Right. I don't think we can. I mean, I
The
think.
question is, yeah, I don't know, Chris, can we amend this?
I don't believe that we can.
Right. I mean, this is.
I disagree with that. I think we can, and I think we can because the town, the warrant was voted on to establish a committee.
But it specified what the committee would look like.
Well, my understanding, John, is that this is basically paraphrases the warrant article. Chris?
That's correct.
Which is correct?
That's correct. That it paraphrases the warrant article.
Right. I mean, we could talk to town council before we vote on this, but I believe this is it. I mean, I'm sure the committee will go out and talk to other towns because that should be part of the charge.
Sure. So this is the what we're looking for. How we do it, I would imagine, is up to the committee.
Exactly.
And since there'll be representatives from the board and the town administrator, certainly there'll be a discussion that to sort of be as detailed and thorough as possible. So I think this is more about the what, and I don't think we have a lot of legroom in the what. And the how, I think, is to be determined by the committee that we ultimately set up. The only part that actually bothers me and is the 7 members. I mean, 7's a large number of people to try to recruit, and there's no wiggle room. I mean, if we can't get 7, or if we can't find 7 good candidates, is there room to move it to 5, for example? Or no, we're locked in?
So the charge that was presented, or the article that was presented to the town, had indicated that it would be made up of 7 members. I think that council would say that if the town set out to create a committee made up of 7 members, but was only able to actually identify and recruit 5, that would be acceptable. But as long as the board didn't say that we're going to start by recruiting 5 or a number less than 7, that you're meeting the spirit of the article that was voted on.
Okay.
Right. And,
Thank you.
Bob, I know, members of, I would think maybe somebody from the personnel board would be interested in being on it, somebody from the warrant committee, and then there have been citizens that have already volunteered. But I agree with Chris. I think we have to go out and try.
Yeah, I agree. It was just a contingency, basically, because it's hard to get people who commit to this stuff now, as you know. So if there's a little wiggle room, if we can't find 7 qualified candidates, that's fine with me. Maybe James, is that okay with you?
Well, what about, hold on, Bob, what about if the opposite is true? What about if we have, if we have 9 people who express an interest?
Then we have a plethora of choice.
Right.
Whoever's deciding on the membership. Right. I don't, having more is usually not a problem, and we could always, pass. But what I personally have done in the past is, if there are more people interested, I find a way to include them in the process, not necessarily on the committee.
Well, they don't have to be voting members.
Right,
Maybe they can have a special task.
Right.
And Robin, I think that's critically important, because to really understand how towns have either benefited or how this has been a detriment is really going to be part of I think the biggest part of this investigation, and to get a good sense from the people who served on those committees, what they did well, what they did wrong, what they would have done differently.
So, John, it's exactly what we did with Carol, right? We
Yeah,
went out to any number of other communities to talk about their community centers and the processes that they went through. And we benefited greatly from the knowledge that we gained about their approach, what went right, what went wrong. So you would literally use the same sort of process.
Yeah. And you remember, Bob, we spent a lot of time on the makeup of the committee.
Oh, yeah.
Who should be on that committee?
I definitely remember that, John.
and you know, I think, as we all do, I think that that's critically important, because you want to do it as thoroughly as possible. So Robin, to summarize this so we can take to the next step, I think what you're hearing both from Bob and I is the question of how limiting, how constraining, or how exact do we follow the word for word of the article now versus what we actually will be doing, as Bob segmented by, this is the what, and we are talking about the how. Bob, is that,
Right.
would you say that's accurate?
The mechanism is this, what's put here. It's up to the committee to decide how they are going to, the process they're going to use to get the information that they need.
Yes, agree. Yes, John, agree. This is sort of like a sow.
Yeah. I'm just,
Right.
I was just reading what James wrote in the write-up of the article, of the entire article.
Right. So I think, this evening we're not discussing process. All we need is agreement on the composition of this committee. And so I would suggest that we do that, and then we can talk about, it would be up to the selectman representative on the committee to ensure that the process works in accordance with the selectmen as a whole's vision.
Yeah, similar to what we did when we looked for the interim town administrator.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move to approve the charge of the Board of Selectmen's membership size study committee, so we can begin to think about who's going to be on it.
Yep. Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Bob Springett.
Aye, John Jeffries.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. And
James, before you leave, thanks again for your work on all these things. Could you just reach out to me on two other matters that I would just like to run by you? One has to do with Dedham Street, and one has to do with another matter in town.
Happy to.
all right.
Thank you.
So thanks, James.
Thank you.
James.
The next item of business is to approve the October 2022, oh my God, to May 2023 calendar of events. It looks like the usual calendar, Chris. I assume the days and the dates are correct. Mona?
That's correct. It's the days are correct. It's the same structure for the most part. I shouldn't say for the most part. It is the same sequencing of events that the town is used to and familiar with, just updated to reflect 2022 and 2023.
Right, and it does not take into account any additional town meetings, and if they were to materialize, we would amend accordingly, right?
Correct.
So the other thing you should remember is that this is an election year, national election for things. So things may get busy for certain members of the staff in October and November. Generally, it's not on our radar, but I thought I'd mention that because I know it consumes a tremendous amount of people's time. And when it comes to what's important, voting is important.
Right. Right. So I view this as administrative. So I'm going to move to approve the calendar of events for October 2022 to 2023.
To May
To
2023.
May 2023, unless if there's any discussion, I'll table the motion.
No, I'm good. I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Bob Springer.
Aye, John Jeffries.
All right, thank you. And Bob, thank you for the reminder. You know, it is an election year, and it does add extra work to the town.
Yeah, it complicates
Right.
life for a number of people in town. Yes.
Right. Oh my God, Chris, you get the fun item.
I actually have about 2 pages of questions about this.
Oh God, I hope not.
They do. The weight is 2.6 pounds, 5 ounces.
Okay, so item 1.8 is to discuss the new contract for weights and measures services and to have a potential vote. And this has nothing to do with, per my discussion with Chris, the weigh stations on the highways. So just letting everybody know.
That's correct. Thanks, Robin. The Commonwealth provides weights and measures work for mass municipalities whose population is under 16,000 people. For those above, they typically have to hire their own, or they enter into a regional agreement with other communities for this work to be done. What this work is it's essentially an individual who goes out and ensures that the gas pumps over at the mobile station are recording the actual amount of gas that is being pumped, and the price reflects that, as well as the scales that you find over at the Dover Market or Powasset Farm to ensure that your groceries are being weighed appropriately. So it's consumer protection. The town has had a contract with the Commonwealth to conduct these services, which these inspections are done every year. They've had a contract with the Commonwealth for many years. It seems as though there's been a change in the director or whoever works in this division over at the state, and they've been doing a lot of work to review their existing contracts and ensure that the prices are reflective of the actual responsibility, which is why we have a new contract before you today. It's a little bit of an increase. It's about $400, I believe, from what it has been in the past. But that is a bargain compared to the cost that we would incur if we were to have to identify our own individual to do this work or partner with another community for this work to be done. So seeking your approval of this contract today.
So Bob, I do not have questions, so I'm going to turn it over to you if you have 2 pages of questions.
Mrs. Hunter, I will follow your lead. I have no questions.
All right. It just seems like one of these archaic things, but
Absolutely,
hey,
sort of like tree walkers,
fence
fence walkers.
I would have preferred if I thought we were getting a weigh station, you know, that we could drive our cars through it.
Come on, madam, please make the motion. Unless John has a comment, I don't know.
No. All right. I got so excited, I lost it. My motion. So I move to authorize the town administrator to exercise all documents related to the agreement for the weights and measures service between Dover and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Standards, dated September 8th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Bob Springer.
Aye, John Jeffries.
All right. So moving along, There are a couple, this is item 1.9, and this is Board of Selectmen items. And I think the first thing, why don't I do the appointments first and then we can do the updates? So why don't I do the appointments, updates, upcoming agendas, and then the updates? So I wanted to appoint, and I'm going to need help on the last name, Antonio
Sanyas?
to the Cultural Council to fill the unexpired term of Wendy Gordon, expiring on June of 2023.
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
Bob Springer.
John Jeffries.
And of course, I would like to thank Wendy for serving on the committee and wish her good luck in her retirement.
Enjoy it long and in a healthy way. Yes, absolutely.
All right. And so I don't know, did you take a look at the upcoming agendas? And Bob, I know we're going to have a report from the Carroll Community Center Committee, but maybe in your update, you can provide some color on that.
So I see the Dover Board of Selectmen meetings, projected agenda items, and in the packet there's the selectmen updates, or town administrator updates, and consent agenda. No other items? Or am I looking at?
No, you're right, because usually we have a couple of agendas to look at.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss
Right.
something.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I think the most important item for the upcoming agenda is when the Carroll Community Center thinks they're going to have something to present to the board.
Right. Okay.
So I don't have any updates. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, so the only thing I would like to discuss as an update is after the meeting that we had, I guess it was August 25th, I took it upon myself to put together sort of a timeline or a statement of work or a deliverables document that I think you guys had received through Chris. And I intended to, if you guys agree that I've captured all of the things that people talked about, I would talk with the building committee next week. It breaks down into really two overall options. I think that's how we discussed. And one option is we basically restart the contract bidding process now or soon. And we'll get a timeline for that from John, our OPM. And then the second set of options is a little bit more complicated, but I think I heard three streams of work. One stream of work is to see what the town could get for its $19 million that has been proposed. And we briefly talked, Deborah and I briefly talked using some of the previous work that they had done on different sized buildings as leverage. So that's one stream of work. The other stream of work is Bob Cox mentioned at our last meeting, thinking about project phasing as another option for the town. So that's a second stream of work. And then there was a third stream of work that was mentioned that talked about kind of a due diligence step that would take a hard look at the Pembroke work, which people have heard about, a community center at much less cost than we currently have, and try to identify, sort of the differences between their approach and what we've done, and make sure that what we're doing, and make sure that we can present at a town meeting answers to citizen questions along those regards. So those are sort of the three streams of work that I think I heard the board support at the last meeting. And if this captures the intent of the board, I ask you to say yes, and then I will use it to help the committee sort of develop that full timeline.
Right. So Bob, I think you really articulated it clearly. I believe we danced around the issue of whether or not to do due diligence. And I think it does make sense to do due diligence.
Okay.
So I think that, reflecting on it, I think it is a question we have to answer. I think 3 or 4 times people have raised
Yeah.
the Pembroke. So, yeah.
Yep. What I'll do is I'll clarify. So the third step, so it'll be considering, I will send, I have an amended document where I say, B, develop other design options, conduct due diligence. And I will send that to you through Chris. And I'm assuming that if it's acceptable, then I'll use it. And all you have to do is tell Chris it's acceptable. Would that work?
Yeah, and if Chris is here, I think the amendment we would need to make is also to what we voted on, is that we would add a due diligence step. So Chris, if you want us to vote on that this evening, please tell us how you want us to proceed.
It's late morning here. I'd have to have more
sorry.
orange juice. It's evening where you are. Chris, does that make sense?
So I think it'd be best for the board to take a vote on whatever it is that you'd like to add or clarify as it relates to the charge that you gave the building committee last week. So if it's simply just, adding a due diligence task in particular related to the cost of the Pembroke Community Center, you could take a vote like that to that effect today, and then, I can convey that back to the building committee, or Bob can, but at least I think taking a vote would be the best path forward.
All right, so then I would agree. So Bob, I'll come up with a motion, make sure that it captured what you said.
So you want me to do it, Robin? I can read it and you can edit it.
Perfect.
Okay, so I would make a motion to add to the building committee's charge to conduct due diligence. That would consist of comparing current design costs to the Pembroke facility, consider engaging an architect to review what we have to make sure that we've covered all the bases, and then take a step at reviewing the project's program requirements to ensure that they are relevant in a post-COVID world, period. Sort of update that. So we would step on all of the assumptions underlying the project to make sure that when we go to town meeting, if there are questions along those lines, we will have done a complete, thorough reanalysis.
Can I ask just for a clarifying question?
Who's this?
It's Chris.
Oh, sorry.
Robin, if that's all right. So this is a bit of a departure from the board's charge to the building committee last time you met, which was just let us know the timing and the cost and the steps of what those 2 options would be. I think that this might, to me, it seems that this new change, if the board adopts it, might lengthen their turnaround time that the board requested last time, which was about 3 to 4 weeks. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear as to what the board's intent here is today.
Right. So Chris, I don't think we're looking for the outcome
of
this. It's just the ability as part of the diligence, and Bob or somebody, the committee just needs to get the cost of just hiring somebody to do the due diligence, and we can specify how long we need that individual to take. Does that clarify it?
So for these new action items, it's really just, it's not the outcome, it's just
Exactly.
the
Yeah,
building
precisely,
committee will come
precisely.
back in a few weeks. Okay,
Right,
understood.
right.
Got it, thanks.
But thanks, we need clarification. So I can second that if it works for John.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springer.
Hi, John Jeffries.
So that was it. That's it for me. There's the building committee, I think is next, is the 12th, I believe.
Okay. John, do you have any updates you want to share?
Two quick ones, Robin. The first, number one, just to thank everybody in the townhouse yesterday for the voting. As Bob mentioned, and you mentioned, Robin, that voting is so critically important, and you know, even for primaries. I mean, primaries, I guess I shouldn't say even for, but including primaries, right? So I'm not sure how many primaries there actually were, because you can only get one ballot, but for all the people, all the officers, all of the staff and the volunteers, you know, all the women that are there for the whole day. So thank you very much for them, for all of that. And then number two, Robin, for open space met on Tuesday night, and open space has a charge that they're going to present with regards to tree preservation. And I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. That is something that open space is taken into consideration for this year. So,
Hey, John, anything on Hale? Stand?
Chris and I were to meet yesterday with Hale, and I was hoping to have lots to talk to you about today. Unfortunately, the member of the Board of Selectmen from Westwood that was scheduled to meet with us was unable to meet with us. So Chris and I discussed it, and rather than us going and meeting with everybody there without a member of the board, we wanted to do it when it was most impactful for everyone's time, and to do it when we were all could be there at the same place, same time. So we were so looking forward to this, and it didn't happen.
So, Robin, I'd like to point out that because now we're in September and summer vacations is over, both John and I are wearing button downs. So we're serious now. We're ready to go.
About what?
Town administrative affairs. We're looking forward to the updates.
Okay. All right. Item 1.10. Chris, do you want to give us your updates?
I do, yeah. So I just want to let the board know, as it relates to the water bylaw enforcement, or the water bylaw communication, two things: the new signs that were presented and then subsequently ordered have gone up around town, so you should see those as you're driving around. The other piece is that there have been about a dozen submissions, primarily through the town's online submission portal, about potential violations of the boards and the town's water restriction bylaw, or water restriction that's currently in place. Those dozen submissions represent about 10 different households who our Public Works Department now is working with to send them out letters educating them about the bylaw enforcement that's currently in place and the reasons why. So things seem to be going well from a communication and a collaboration standpoint on this effort. And then the last thing I just mentioned is that capital budget guidance will be going out today to departments and to committees to formally kick off the FY24 budget process. And that's it for today.
Robin, you're muted.
Muted.
All right. So the next item of business is the consent agenda, and on that is the approval of 2022 one-day special liquor licenses for September. And they're rolling in. It's for September 10th, 11th, 13th, 17th, 2 on the 17th, 18th, 19th, 21st, 24th, 2 on the 25th, 27th, 30th, and October 7th, 9th, and 28th. Party
That's happening
season
in
has
Powyssit.
started.
Second.
So I move,
Oh, sorry. I thought that was it was.
I move
Sorry.
to, do you have something you want to say?
No, I actually thought you made the motion. That's my mistake.
Okay, so I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
I, Bob Springer.
I, John Jeffries, just bring to your attention, Robin, 16 parties. You got no invitations.
Yeah, I know that, John. I was waiting for you to remind me how unpopular I am.
There were so many weddings. Things are happening, man.
I know, there's a lot of weddings.
Yeah,
I noticed
Robin,
that.
speaking of weddings, you must have, I can't believe of all these, you didn't get at least 1 or 2 aren't weddings that you got invited to.
No. Must
My
be my
kid-
husband. It's
my
definitely
kid-
not.
Yeah,
me.
oh yeah. It's not you for sure. You can tell Greg I said so.
My kids are in wedding mode. They are going to more weddings than you can possibly imagine. So
Right. My son's just a little bit behind, but he's starting. So, well, gentlemen,
Madam.
I appreciate you changing the schedule and let the record show that we are way ahead of schedule. Maybe I need to be in Europe more often. And with that, I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? I, Robin Hunter.
I, Bob Springer.
I, John Jeffries.
Well,
Robin,
thanks.
enjoy your evening. John, enjoy your workday. I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah, it's supposed to be raining here. I just
Oh.
don't see the
Well,
rain.
it always rains in Europe. That's not news.
Enjoy.
All right.
Thanks
a
all.
lot.